Thank you for joining the CaFÉ webinar, Top 3 Solutions to Common Mistakes in CaFÉ. My name is Ayana, and I'm the Operations Coordinator here at CaFÉ. Today, I'm going to go over some tips to help you avoid a few of the most common setup issues we see when clients are setting up their call. The key items that we'll cover include understanding the different jury scoring types, setting an appropriate image range for submission, and understanding how media requirements relate to entry fee structure. When these elements are aligned correctly, your call becomes much easier for artists to understand and much easier for your jurors to review. Now, we'll go ahead and look at some common mistakes in these areas and show you simple ways to avoid them. Let's start with the first one, choosing the right scoring type for your jury process. We do have two simple ways to evaluate submissions in CaFÉ. And when setting up your call, one of the most important decisions is how jurors will evaluate those submissions. There are two primary scoring types available: scoring by art and scoring by application. Each one supports a different review process for your jurors. First, we'll go over scoring by art. With this scoring method, jurors evaluate and score each artwork individually rather than reviewing the entire application as a single unit. If an artist submits multiple images, they would receive a score per image. For example, 3 images would equal 3 scores from a particular artist. When is this best used? Scoring by art works best for calls where your goal is to select single pieces of artwork to invite. Each artwork should be judged independently. Artists are submitting multiple unrelated works where one artwork can be represented by one image, or jurors are selecting individual pieces of art rather than an artist or their portfolio. Now, you should choose scoring by art if you are curating art for a gallery show, choosing artwork for an auction, judging art for an exhibition, awarding prizes to the best in show, picking art for a poster competition, or if you are featuring artwork in a publication. Now, what if I want to accept detail images? This scoring type was not intended to be used to accept detail images. However, if you'd like to, keep in mind the following. Jurors will be asked to provide a score for each individual image. This also includes detail images. If you're fine with jurors scoring the detail images, you're more than welcome to request this scoring type. We do recommend that jurors provide the same score to the main image and any detail images for consistency. Some key considerations with this scoring type are artists can be charged per image. The system does not support an image range for the base entry fee if you plan on having an additional media fee. For example, 1 to 3 images for $15, with each additional image costing an additional $5 does not work here. You must select a single number for the image minimum. You cannot have a range. This scoring type is ideal when you only need one image per artwork and if you're wanting to charge by image, or for example, if you have no fee at all. We'll talk more about fees connecting to scoring types in a bit, but our next scoring type, scoring by application. Jurors evaluate the images and application as a whole versus scoring individual artworks like scoring by art. If an artist submits multiple images, they would receive a single score for the application as a whole. For example, if a particular artist submitted 3 images, they would receive one score for those 3 images. Now, when is this scoring type best used? Scoring by application should be used if your goal is to select an artist rather than an artwork to invite. If you'd like all images, videos, and audio files to be grouped into one application. If you'd like to accept detail images, or if jurors will be providing a single score for the application and images overall as a body of work. Now, you should choose scoring by application if you are qualifying artists for a public art project, issuing grants, recruiting artists for a residency, evaluating photography portfolios, selecting artists for a roster, or if you're curating a sculpture walk. Keep in mind, this scoring type is ideal when you need detail images or more than one image to view multiple angles of the work. And if you're wanting to charge a flat application fee, or perhaps no fee at all, that also works with this scoring type as well. What if I wanted to score each artwork individually? Yes, this scoring type can also accommodate that. You can choose to score either a portfolio of different works or a body of images of the same artwork. If you'd like to review multiple artworks from a single artist, you can advise your applicants to submit, for example, 4 different artworks on the application. Jurors would then be able to provide a single score for the application and those multiple artworks. If you'd like to review each artwork individually, on the other hand, you can advise your applicants to submit, for example, 1 to 3 images of a single artwork per application. If an artist wishes to submit an additional artwork, they can do so through a second application. Some key considerations to keep in mind with this scoring type are the focus is on the overall submission rather than individual artworks with scoring by art. And do keep in mind artists are charged per application. This scoring type is really ideal when you need detail images or more than one view to really get a good sense or judge the artwork. Here's a great graphic that the team created to help funnel you into the correct scoring type based off of your goal for the call. Now, really, it's a great visual representation. So, first, are you, for example, curating art for a gallery show? You should go with scoring by art. Or perhaps you're qualifying artists for a public art project. That would instead funnel you into jury by application. And I do recommend taking a moment to pause and think about this for a second of your own calls or your future calls and think about which scoring type you'd be funneled into. Now we'll go ahead and move on to our second solution, setting an appropriate image range. The number of images you require from artists should always align with your scoring method and fee structure. When using scoring by art, jurors will be scoring each image individually. This, of course, includes detail images, meaning each uploaded image is treated as its own item during the review process. Because of that, your base entry fee is applied to the minimum number of images required. Any images beyond that minimum can have an additional media fee if you'd like. For example, you might require 3 images for the base entry fee, and then allow artists to submit additional images for a small additional fee per image. So, a good example would be a minimum of 3 images for $15, for example. Again, our system does support creating or adding an additional media fee, which applies to each work sample submitted above the minimum required. For example, that first example would then turn into a minimum of 3 images for $15, with each subsequent image being an additional $5, up to perhaps a maximum of 6 images. This structure works well when the goal is to evaluate or charge by individual artworks, or again, scoring by art. With scoring by application, on the other hand, jurors are reviewing the entire submission as a whole. Images an artist submits are grouped into a body of work. And again, really, if an artist is submitting 3 images, for example, those 3 images would only receive 1 score. Because of that, the base entry fee covers the application entirely, and artists may choose to submit a range of images within your base entry fee. Whereas scoring by art, you're not able to do a range. Scoring by application does allow you to implement a range there. Some examples for scoring by application: you could allow, for example, 1 to 3 images for a single application fee. That would then mean 1 to 3 images for $15, for example. This works well when the images represent a body of work rather than separate entry. Additionally, if you'd like to charge for additional applications, you can allow artists to submit multiple applications per account. With this, artists will be charged the base entry fee each time they submit an application. You can choose to create a second entry fee or coupon code using the Product Editor tab within the Call Editor if you'd like to discount any of those additional applications. This structure works well when the goal is to evaluate or charge by application. Moving on to the third solution. The third common mistake involves misaligned fee structures. Your fee structure should always match your scoring type and image requirements. There are two main approaches to this: charging by image using scoring by art, or charging by application using scoring by application. First, charging by image. Artists are typically limited to one application per account. Again, you cannot use a range of images. Instead, the fee applies to each artwork submitted. A common structure might look like this: a minimum of 3 images for $15, with each additional image being an additional $5, up to a total of 6 images. So, still running with that example we used in the last solution. And charging by application, artists may submit multiple applications per account. The entry fee applies to the application as a whole. And again, this scoring type allows you to use image ranges, and the fee applies to the application overall. Now, a common scoring by art structure might look like this: a minimum of 1 image for $15, with each additional image being an additional $5, up to 6 total images. With this, all images included on a single application and submitted at once. Again, you're charging by image here. Or another structure might be you're charging 1 to 6 images of multiple artworks for a flat $15 fee. All images should be included on that single application and submitted at once. And with this, you're charging that flat $15 fee for 1 to 6 images rather than charging each individual image. Some common scoring by application fee structures would be, for example, 1 to 6 images for $15 for the first application, with the option of submitting up to 3 applications per account. With this, you'd want to clarify that artists are submitting one artwork per application, and you are technically charging per artwork or per application here. If you'd like to charge a second entry fee or a discounted entry fee, you can do so by going to the Product Editor tab within the Call Editor. Another structure would be 1 to 6 images of multiple artworks for $15. All images would be included on a single application for, again, a flat $15 fee to apply. A quick reminder: one simple way to prevent confusion for artists is to add reminders directly on or in the application form. You can do this by creating an information only form question. This type of question doesn't require an answer from applicants. It simply provides instructions or reminders or further directions without providing an area to answer. For example, if you're using scoring by application, you might include a note on the application form saying something to the effect of: artists may submit 3 images of a single artwork per application for $45, with up to 3 applications allowed per art. Or for scoring by art, artists may submit 3 images for $45, with each additional image costing an additional $5, up to 6 images total. Providing these reminders helps ensure artists understand exactly how your images and fees are structured, which also helps to reduce incomplete submissions and support questions either to the CaFÉ team or to you directly. And that concludes our webinar on top 3 solutions to common mistakes in CaFÉ. I hope you gained some useful information today. Thank you so much for joining me today. And if anyone does think of any questions, please feel free to email us at cafehelp at wearecreativewest.org. Again, thank you for joining me, and keep an eye out for the next webinar and the next registration link.